Hi there, this is Benita from Resting to Rise. I have a question for you. Have you ever experienced a negative life event and felt so stressed out by it that you've asked yourself the question, I wonder if this is going to make me sick? It's a fair question. Lots of research shows, in fact, that certain kinds of stressful events do get into the body and can be part of creating physical challenge. This is really important because for us to have the energy in the world that we want, to create the kind of world that we want, we need to be able to process stress efficiently and well. Now, before I go on, if you don't remember anything else from today, I want you to take this away. What is this? CUB. I want you to remember the acronym CUB. What do these things have to do with cubs? Well, if you know me and my children, you know they like rainbow, fuzzy, unicorn kinds of things. These happen to be the closest things I have to like bear cubs or stuffed bears in my house. Okay. CUB. What does CUB have to do with any of this? When you experience a negative life event and the stress that goes along with it, how is it that it gets into your body? I want to tell you there are three things people tend to say to themselves that end up having kind of toxic physical effects. The first is that, wow, this thing happened and it's going to last forever. We have this feeling like it's just not ever going to change, right? The second feeling or story is that it's going to ruin everything. And then the third one is, it's my fault. What did I do to make this happen? Okay. So those are things we say to ourselves. They're not even conscious. For a lot of us, they're just sort of knee-jerk reactions when something bad happens. It's a protective mechanism. Instead, you can tell three different stories that are related to CUB. The first is, what if change were possible? Now, the reason I set this up as a question instead of as a statement, like an affirmation, because I could have had you say, oh, change is possible. Well, for a lot of us, that feels like we're gaslighting ourselves. We don't really even believe it. Framing this as a question puts a cognitive wedge inside your mind where it's a possibility that your subconscious can look for an answer to this question. And if it's scanning around for an answer to this question, it's more likely to find the answer. So you can consciously ask yourself, what if change were possible after experiencing a negative life event and the stress that goes along with it? The second thing you can scan for is this idea of what is untouched. So instead of asking yourself, or saying to yourself, this is going to ruin everything, look for what is untouched. Now, the advanced move here is asking, where is the silver lining? But I will say that for a lot of us, that feels unavailable or too hard to stretch. But I mention this because have you ever heard of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder? Well, there's also something called post-traumatic stress growth, PTSD. How does that happen? PTSD happens when people in the midst of struggle and strife and stress are able to actually see things that were a silver lining that came out of it that was good. And that works because you're increasing your ability to see things from a different perspective. And it really shakes things up. So in times of turmoil and stress, there's an opportunity because your system is so out of whack that maybe you can create a new frame of reference. So what is untouched if you can't ask for where the silver lining is? The third question is, what if I were doing the best that I can with what I have? Instead of saying, oh my gosh, this is all my fault. Now, taking responsibility is a good thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's an empowering thing. Taking over responsibility is none of those things. So when something bad, hard, stressful happens, and you can ask yourself, what if I were doing the best with what I had? That is going to have really much better outcomes on your physical health. This idea of self-compassion, sometimes we think when we're too self-compassionate, we're not going to be motivating, we're going to go easy on ourselves. The research exactly is the opposite. Self-compassion allows us some more space, more breathing room to look at different possibilities. Okay, I want to wrap up by saying there are two kinds of stress. There's the eustress, EUSTRESS, the good kind of stress. This kind of stress has been described as a stimulus for change, and I love it. So that is the kind of stress when you're trying to do something, you're reaching for something that feels a little bit harder, but you get the energy to do it. Like, let's say making a video, for example. The other kind of stress is the stress we've been talking about so far, this idea of toxic stress. So my invitation to you is next time, in this next week or this next month, when you or someone you know and love handles a negative life event, registers it as stress, can you ask yourself those warm, fuzzy CUB questions? What if change were possible? What is untouched? And what if I were doing the best that I could? Tell me how it goes. Keep me posted. This is Bonita from Resting to Rise. Wishing you good rest.